My dearest brothers and sisters, this is Tunia speaking. I love you so very much. I deeply empathize with your situation. Earth life is really, really tough right now. I get that it feels like no one is doing their part. Us galactics seem to not be doing a whole lot. The average person is just after personal in-the-moment comfort. The gray hats certainly aren't arresting people quickly enough, and some supposed spiritual people are attacking other spiritual people. You've been promised mass arrests, you've been promised Jazara, you've been promised the event, the solar flash, and you've been promised physical contact with galactics, and none of those things have yet materialized. Meanwhile, the years tick on, and society keeps grinding people down. The good things I mentioned are still coming, but I understand that many people are frustrated. I wish we Pleiadians had a good, more direct option to help you than just raising the energy and consciousness on your planet. It works, but it's a slow process. An issue is that some of the bad guys on your planet are presidents and prime ministers. You can imagine that if we start arresting those kinds of people, that we risk ending up in a shooting match with several Earth militaries. Not to mention that aliens kidnapping world leaders will cause widespread fear and confusion, and you don't need more of that. So that isn't a great timeline to walk down. Still, I do understand the feeling in the lightworker community that we galactics should be doing more. Today I would like to share something that a lot of you will already understand. In fact, some of you will understand it even better than I do. And yet, for a number of people, I think this message will be valuable. The message is, learning a new skill is uncomfortable. Lifting weights is uncomfortable. And similarly, growing spiritually can very well be uncomfortable too. This also means that statements or messages or situations that make you feel uncomfortable are not automatically evil or malevolent or wrong, although of course sometimes they are. And disregarding the message or walking away from the situation is not always the best solution. For example, if someone triggers you, then that is an amazing opportunity for you to grow spiritually. Sure, it's not pleasant, but usually when you are triggered, there's something inside you that you could really benefit from looking at. Triggers are an invitation to look inside. Frankly, people triggering you is a great gift in and of itself, regardless of whether they are right or wrong. If you get triggered, it wouldn't be improper to say, "What you said triggered me. Thank you so very much for your gift of pointing me to some part inside me that I may want to take a look at. At this current moment in time, you are my teacher, and I am grateful." Just as people say thank you for stating your boundaries, it can also be wise to say thank you for triggering me. Again, it doesn't even matter if they're right or wrong, that they triggered you is valuable in and of itself, because it points you to something inside yourself. Often, observing or loving whatever is inside yourself is actually more important than who is wrong and who is right in the current conversation. Note that there's a huge difference between you disagreeing with someone from an emotionally neutral place versus disagreeing with someone from an emotionally triggered place. If you neutrally disagree with someone, fine, and that often doesn't bring great spiritual growth to you. But if you're triggered by someone, then you've struck gold. If I had access to a teacher who triggered me every time I saw her, I would visit her every single day and bring roses. I would be able to grow so much that way. Even if I thought that every single thing she said was incorrect, I would still happily visit her, just for the benefit of being triggered and thereby being pointed to whatever is inside of me that can still use some more attention or love or observation. Frankly, I feel under-triggered. Sure, there's lots of things and people that I disagree with, but I don't get triggered by them. Earth Lightworkers, when we finally meet, I'll give you a bouquet of roses if you can give me the gift of triggering me. Deal? Let's turn to another example of spiritual growth being possibly uncomfortable. If people respectfully disagree with each other, great. That can be the basis for a conversation that helps both people grow. Can that be uncomfortable? Yes, that's also true. This is actually one of the primary qualities of Earth Lightworkers that I respect very much, that you often prioritize what's right or what's valuable or what's true over what's comfortable. Also, this principle of growth doesn't always feel good also means that if a romantic relationship causes you some discomfort or so-called negative emotions, then that doesn't automatically mean that you should break up with them. In some situations, that person is providing you with a priceless opportunity for growth, which may not feel good at the moment, but it may actually be really valuable. And sitting down with your partner and having a tough conversation may again be uncomfortable in the moment, but that conversation may very well be quite valuable for your personal growth, possibly more valuable than if you just dump them. That being said, if someone simply doesn't treat you well, then breaking up probably is the best choice. I'm not suggesting that you should tolerate being treated poorly by your partner. Section: Spiritual Clichés. Many spiritual people have embraced a couple of nice-sounding, good-feeling emotional principles. However, some of those principles may have some amount of value, but they may also be incomplete or overly simplistic or not always applicable. For instance, yes, you should love all beings. But it's not unloving to state plainly that certain beings often choose to be destructive. Would you consider it to be unspiritual to say that feral wolves are worthy of love, but also they may eat people, and so it's good to acknowledge that and to protect people from being eaten by feral wolves? From my perspective, this idea of I'll just love everything and working against destructive beings is bad is only viable if there are a number of men, and some women too, but mostly men, who protect you from danger, and who are willing to analyze destructive actors and work against them to keep people safe. Hence, I'll just love everything is a bit of a luxury belief to have. It's only viable to believe that because you're being kept safe by people who don't think like that. You don't just need love. You also need strength and wisdom. If we could achieve galactic peace just by sending love to everyone, then Hakann would gladly become, say, a painter or dancer. If Hakann followed his joy, he'd be inventing new dance moves right now. But we can't achieve galactic peace purely through sending love, and so Hakann is currently coordinating yet another set of military contingencies with the Arcturians and Andromedans. Alas, the galaxy will have to make do without Hakann's dance moves for a while longer. For my part, I'm grateful that men, and some women too, but mostly men, are working to protect me from danger. Thanks, men. I really appreciate that my family, and many other families, can live in peace, thanks to your hard and sometimes dangerous and unpleasant work. A good way to evaluate a spiritual principle is to consider what the world would look like if everyone followed that principle. If everyone figured they'd just love everyone and everyone figured that opposing destructive people is bad, then well, murderers and rapists would have free reign. I think it would be naive to assume that this wouldn't change much. Yes, police reform is needed, but police also stop a lot of serious criminals, and also a lot of crime is prevented just because would-be criminals know that police are active. There are lots of real-world Earth examples that if the rule of law breaks down, then many more people start robbing and assaulting each other. Similarly, consider the principle that people should just follow their joy and that's it. Now this principle is unironically great for getting people out of the first stage in Hakann's announcement and spiritual stages model. So there's certainly some value in this principle. However, if everyone followed this principle, then Earth human soldiers wouldn't be freeing children, because that's an unpleasant and dangerous thing to do. But that would mean that those children would literally get tortured or eaten or raped. Also, if our soldiers followed their joy, they wouldn't be risking their life in covert missions on Earth to help you. They'd be enjoying orgies or creating art or starting a family or going on vacation to jaw-droppingly beautiful worlds. If the channeler followed his joy, then he probably would have stopped posting channelings 1 or a few months ago, and you wouldn't even be receiving messages from Hakann and Arkok and myself anymore. After the channeler posted his recent Hakann, Earth's hybrid culture message, he had unpleasant and stressful dreams the night after due to hostile comments he received. Now, no one is saying you're not allowed to make those comments. I'm just pointing out that posting channelings is not joyful at this point in time for the channeler. He's doing these channelings as an act of service to Source. If you think being in service to Source is silly, well, you wouldn't be receiving these messages anymore if the channeler also thought like that. Now, to be clear, I am not saying that you should do more self-development or more helping others work. I know life on Earth is incredibly tough right now, and many of you are already exhausted. There's genuinely no shame in resting. In fact, many light workers rest less than they should. I understand not everyone is in a situation where they can rest. I empathize. After all, you do need to put your own air mask on first. And how well you are doing personally also affects the Earth collective. Yet on the other hand, as is the theme of today's message, if so-called negative feeling come up when someone else says something, then it's productive to first look inside before concluding that the messenger is trying to hurt or mislead you. For example, if you experienced guilt when I was saying that things would go badly if everyone just followed their joy, well, I genuinely don't think you need to feel shame or guilt for resting during these tough and crazy times. In fact, sometimes resting is a braver choice than just metaphorically running until you collapse. But if you experienced guilt there, well, then maybe that's pointing to some hurt parts inside yourself that need some more attention or love or observation. To be clear, I'm not saying here if you feel guilt, good, do more work. I don't think that at all. I'm saying here, if you feel guilt, then maybe there's still some feelings inside you of unworthiness or of not being good enough or of not doing enough or of not being appreciated enough. In this case, maybe look inside. A previous message of ours may also help. Hakann, you are already more than good enough. If someone says something that makes you feel guilt, then sure, sometimes they are trying to manipulate or hurt you. But sometimes they're not. Again, spiritual growth is often uncomfortable and can be painful. So sometimes, the person who says something that makes you feel a so-called negative emotion is actually pointing you to something inside yourself that still needs some attention or love or observation. Sometimes that person is doing you a greater service than the person who just says a nice-sounding and good-feeling spiritual cliché. The mental model that many people on Earth have is, Tom said something that hurts me, and therefore Tom is evil, and I should stop listening to Tom. But really, what's often more accurate is thinking in terms of, Tom said something that touched an infection that I already had. Now my already infected body part hurts. I should go take care of that. Avoiding Tom may not be the answer, because then your infection, emotional pain just keeps festering and spreading silently, without your awareness of it. And yes, I know that taking care of your infection, or in other words, your emotional pain, is a long and painful process. Take the time you need. Put on your own air mask first. Even if the healing process seems endless, that's often just an ego trick to get you to give up. The healing process is long, but you absolutely can heal either fully or at least partially, and even partial healing will probably make you feel a lot better. A message by Hakann will likely be posted within a few days of this channeling, named Hakann, The Search for Meaning. The conclusion of that article is, if you want happiness and self-esteem, then be part of and contribute towards a worthy movement. Now personally I do think that people can be happy and have self-esteem even without doing or achieving anything. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with being happy and having self-esteem even without doing anything or achieving anything. However, I also realize that finding happiness and self-esteem may be much harder if you grow up on Earth or on a reptilian world as opposed to in Pleiadian society, and many Earth people won't be helped just by me saying that they deserve happiness and that I already love them and that I think they're already good enough. Even though that's all true. I think Hakann's statement is more practically useful and precise than the general follow your joy statement. After all, service to a worthy and greater cause than yourself may be what brings you deep and lasting fulfillment, even if that service isn't fun or joyful in the moment. Whereas follow your joy can lead people to thinking exclusively in terms of what's fun in the moment, which certainly has a place but may not lead to lasting fulfillment. We know that an over-prioritization of what's fun now may not work out great in the long term. Now for some people it will be obvious that serving a worthy and greater cause is them following their own joy, but this won't be obvious for everyone. Though again, it's good to put on your own air mask first before trying to help others, and putting on your air mask involves resting enough and doing some fun things and some things that give you energy. And once you're on solid ground, it's still good to have a balance between service to a greater cause and making time to also do things that you enjoy in the moment. I think one part of what's going on is that people feel exhausted and overburdened and underappreciated and confused by the world's complexity. And hence a simple, feel-good message like just follow your joy is appealing, also because it makes people feel that they're spiritually advanced because they figured it out. But as the saying goes, for every complex problem there is an answer that is simple, elegant, appealing and wrong. The world is more complex than just follow your joy. If that was the key, then hundreds of millions of impulsive, hedonistic people would have found inner peace by now. But they haven't. And if someone shares that it's not that simple, and that things actually won't go super well if everyone only does what they feel like doing in the moment, well, I understand that message doesn't feel as good as follow your joy. However, as the saying goes, shooting the messenger doesn't help. Just because a message doesn't feel good, doesn't mean it's wrong. Finally, I do understand that it's easy for me to sit up here, with my cushy life and with my lack of stress and trauma and challenges, and encourage you to embrace discomfort. But, well, it's always good to choose consciously. If you get triggered, what do you want to do? Do you want to tell the person who said the thing who triggered you that they're evil? Do you want to look inside? Are you tired and do you want to rest? Do you want to just go do something fun? Do you want to be of service? Source understands and loves all choices. The Galactics and I will love you regardlessly and endlessly. But whatever you choose, it is good to choose consciously. Your star sister, Tunia.